Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host as always, Daniel Levy, your co-host Shaq. We're going to be talking UFC 214, Jon Jones versus Daniel Cormier. Man, the rematch is finally going to happen. I don't want to jinx it. It's not Saturday yet, but allegedly they're going to fight this Saturday in Los Angeles.
Yeah, man. Jon Jones, the greatest fighter of all time, arguably going up against another top 5 pound-for-pound guy in Cormier, whose only loss is to Jon Jones. And I mean, when we look at this guy's resume, it's incredible. So this is arguably the greatest, light heavyweight fight of all time. And plus, we got Barao versus Sterling. We got Renato and Moicano and Brian Ortega. We got Albu and Curran. So it's a good card.
It really is, man. I mean, Jon Jones is 23-0. I don't care what Steve Mazzagatti has to say about that. We've never seen a fighter go on a 23-fight undefeated streak. It's unheard of. He's beating champion after champion after champion. And we'll see if that trend continues Saturday because he's got another champion to fight in D.C. And, man, I cannot wait. But let's get down to business, man, because, look, Andre Fili, he's a minus 380 favorite. He's taking on the newcomer, Calvin Kattar, who's plus 315. Now, a lot of people haven't seen Calvin Kattar. A lot of people aren't familiar with him, and I'll tell you right now, the kid's no slouch. They call him the Boston finisher, and I know a lot of people have an issue with that nickname because he's not really known for finishing fights. He goes to decision a lot, but I don't really hold that against him, man, because when it comes down to betting, all I care about is winning, whether it's a decision, a knockout, a DQ, a split, anything. So Calvin Kattar goes to decision a lot. He's 16-2. He hasn't lost since 2010. I call him the white Rob Font because, man, I mean, look, he keeps his hands up like Rob Font. He's technical. He's not as, dynamic as Rob Font or anything like that, but he's got a very similar style. He's from Boston as well. But when you talk about Andre Fili, man, especially lately, the athleticism this kid has, that footwork, I don't know what to call that footwork because I've never seen anything like it before, but when you watch that hot ground fight, especially in the first round, the way he's moving on his feet, the way he's so light, and then he throws that left hook out of nowhere, leaps in and out of the pocket, drops him, the urgency to finish the fight with those hammer fists. I mean, props to Hakran for surviving. This is going to be a very interesting fight. You got to favor the seasoning, the UFC experience of Andre Fili, but I'm not going to sit here and count out a guy like Calvin Kattar, who I've watched on Access TV win every single fight I've seen him in, man, and he does deserve the UFC call. It's not a case where the kid's too green. He's 16-2, so I'm going to go with Fili by decision here. I think, the UFC experience is going to show. I think Kattar will be back to fight another day, but right now, I do think it's Fili's time.
I haven't seen too much of Kattar. All his fights on YouTube are from like 4-6 years ago, so it shows me that he's very experienced. But in terms of Andre Fili, this guy's making the right improvements. That whole team Alpha Male, they're on a roll right now, and they're improving at a good rate. In the Hakran fight, even when he got taken down, we saw him reverse Hakran a couple times. And those switch step shots that he has, like his old teammate TJ Dillashaw, I mean, those look really beautiful. So I have to think the experience is going to play a factor in here, even though he is a younger fighter. And I think he's going to get a finish here, man. I think he's going to, move on to bigger and better things and, possibly get that rebooking with Doo Ho Choi.
So you think Andre Fili is going to finish the Boston finisher?
Yeah, I think so. I just, I haven't seen too much of Calvin Kattar, so I can't really say. I've seen a couple fights, he looks like he's got some decent boxing, but this is a whole different ballgame now. This ain't just showing up at the gym no more, so I got to go with Fili here by finish.
It's true, but you could also make the case that this could be that classic letdown spot because when you get a big fight with Doo Ho Choi, you're fighting in your home state of California. I mean, you're getting up for a fight like that, but then they call you that, Doo Ho can't make it, and you're going to fight Calvin Kattar. You might be like, who the fuck is Calvin Kattar? So who knows if he's motivated. But I know if Fili shows up for this one, he will take it. But I do question it, if he's as excited knowing, the switching opponent. And Calvin's a really, really tough guy, like I mentioned. But all that said, I do agree with you. I think Fili will find a way to get it done. Now, I'm very excited about this fight because we got Renato Moicano Carneiro. He's minus 150. The comeback on Brian T. City Ortega is plus 130. Now, Shaq, what are you thinking, man?
Renato Moicano is the best prospect at 145 pounds, in my opinion. This guy has shown me that he's good everywhere. We saw him in the Tukugal fight move forward, keep his range, and, outstrike him. And when he got taken down, he hit him with those beautiful butterfly sweeps, and he got back up to his feet every single time. Then we saw him go in there against Jeremy Stephens, a big power puncher. He switches up the plan. Now he's moving backwards, staying on the outside. and, outstriking him, landing those body kicks, landing those leg kicks. And even when they got inside the pocket, he beat Jeremy. And then we saw him take down Jeremy easily 2 times, where guys like D1 wrestlers like Bermudez, Frankie Edgar, even though Frankie did take him down, they're struggling to take him down, where when Renato took him down, it was clean, no resistance at all. And, Ortega, he has a tendency to fall behind in his fights, lose the first 2 rounds, and his coaches always express deep waters, because he excels in chaos. But I think he's going to get down 2 rounds, and I think Renato's just too poised. He's got that good ringmanship, and he's just too seasoned to engage Ortega in a wild, crazy fight. He's going to stay technical, he's going to stay composed, and he's going to win this decision easily.
I got Moicano as well, man. He kind of reminds me of the featherweight James Vick, man. Circles around the ring, a lot of volume. Most importantly, he wins fights. Maybe a little bit less on the flying knees than Vic, but that jab is out there, and he's always moving, and he doesn't feel a need to engage you in a brawl, which is a quality I love in a fighter. If you'll take a big shot, because Jeremy did hit him with 1 or 2. Look, when you're fighting Jeremy Stephens for 15 minutes, 1 or 2 punches are going to land, and when he took him like a champ. He stayed focused, he stayed disciplined, he stayed on his game plan. That's exactly what I like. When you talk about Brian T. City Ortega, to me, he just reminds me of the featherweight Gilbert Burns, and what I mean by that is, on the feet, he's a total punching bag, but he's got unbelievable jiu-jitsu. So, okay, all we got to do, we know how to beat a guy like that. We outpoint him on the feet. We pick him apart with the jab. There's no chance in hell that Brian T. City is going to outstrike Moicano. His only chance to win this fight is to somehow drag it to the mat and use his expert Brazilian jiu-jitsu. But Moicano's a black belt too, and I'm not talking to Ryan James black belt either.
Yeah, Renato, he trains with Team Constrictor, who produced Paulo Thiago back in the day. And remember some of the 6 submissions he had back in the day, and knockouts, by the way. And, Ortega, he doesn't have the wrestling advantage here. We can take him down, and I think we can go in his guard and be totally fine. Obviously, I don't want him to play around with that, just considering that Ortega, besides Demian Maia, he's got to be up there for, best fighter in terms of submission ability. So, some of the stuff he pulls off, that Thiago Tavares fight, that Brandao fight. And Ortega can strike too. Just his defense isn't very good, but, he's game, man. He's going to be in there the whole fight. I'm not saying that Renato's going to go out there and totally, tool him, but I think Renato's just going to keep this safe, win every single round. And, I got 3.85 units on it to win 2.96, and I'm very confident that it's going to cash.
Yeah, but when we talk about Demian Maia, one thing that makes Maia so great is that he actually has wrestling too. Not a formal wrestling background, but he chains takedowns. Whereas T-City, it's all off his back. And that's why they call him T-City, Triangle City. So, as long as we're not fucking around in his guard, I think we should be perfectly fine. Now, I want to emphasize something you talked about. You talked about how Moicano took down Jeremy Stephens, and people might not think that's a big deal. Let me explain why that's a big deal. When Frankie took down Jeremy Stephens, Jeremy popped right back up like it was nothing. It wasn't until the 3rd round where Frankie finally got a little bit of top control. Whereas when Moicano took down Jeremy, he kept him down. So that shows me a lot, and also the fact that, it's not that he's just some wrestler looking for a random shot. He's able to mix his strikes to his takedowns, and he's just an all-around, well-rounded MMA fighter.
You can't tell me any weaknesses he has in his game. He showed me he can move forward. He showed me he can counter-strike moving backwards. He showed me his offensive wrestling, and he showed me his defensive wrestling and his get-up game. So this guy's the top prospect at 145, in my opinion.
He is, and, Clay Guida dropped Brian T. City Ortega. I just don't think Brian T. City reacts that well when he gets hit. Not because he's not tough. He's very tough. It's because he's defensively flawed in a way where he's just not technically sound in terms of his defense striking. And that's all there is to it. He's a tough guy. He wants to win the fight, but when you're fighting a dude that's so much more technical than you, as Moicano is, who's just a smarter fighter, I think Moicano's going to get that decision, man.
When you're fighting, Clay Guida, who at the time, was on his way out, props to Clay Guida for beating Eric Koch.
He still is on his way out.
Props to him for beating Koch, but we know the deal here. And then, when he fights a mental midget in Brandao, after losing the first 2 rounds, he got that front headlock, pulled guard and got that triangle. And, it is what it is. I just think Renato's more composed, and he's just a more smarter fighter. That fight IQ is just going to prevail here.
Yeah, so I put Moicano in a 4-unit parlay. I don't often do parlays, but 2 weeks in a row. Last week, Jimmy Rivera and Shane Burgos. I know Weidman went out there and destroyed my Kelvin play, but Jimmy and Shane took care of business for me. Oh, yeah. We can talk about that later. But look, this next fight, But real quick before that, 4 units on Moicano and someone later on. But this next fight, we got Aljamain Sterling. He's minus 125, the comeback on the former champion and the former pound-for-pound king. Renan Barao is plus 105. Now, it's interesting to see Barao as an underdog here against a guy like Sterling, right?
Yeah, I mean, on paper, this fight seems really simple. Renan Barao has 100% takedown defense. I think he might have got taken out once, but it was very briefly, and it was while he was rocked. So he's never been taken down cleanly. And we know what happens when Aljamain can't get takedowns. His striking, his hands have not improved at all, in my opinion. He's just a kicker. And, you know, when Renan was plus 125, you know, I highly considered it. But the reason why I'm going to pass on this is just because I feel like one of these days, you know, Aljamain might figure it out. He's very athletic, and he's got the tools to be a very good fighter at 135. And Renan, you know, he's living in Phoenix now, by the way. He's living in at Power MMA. He moved to the States finally. And, you know, back in the day, I used to say fade Power MMA, but, you know, I think the times have passed now.
Aaron Simpson left.
You know, he's got his own coaches down there. He's got his own people. Renan trains with his own people. And, you know, I'm not very high on Aljamain Sterling in the Caraway fight. In the lead up to the Caraway fight, he's saying Caraway's the worst striker, Caraway sucks, Caraway this and that. And then he gets totally punked out the week of the fight. You know, Caraway was like, 1 minute he's saying I suck, and then the next minute he's saying I'm better than Thomas Almeida and Garbrandt. So he was like, that clearly shows you where his head's at. And then the Assunção fight, you know, he thinks he won. You know, it was a close fight, but you can't be mad. You can't be, you can only blame yourself. You didn't move forward. You moved back the entire time, and you only threw kicks. That's not enough in this game. And, you know, I don't trust him at all at minus 125, but I passed on Barao mainly due to I'm not sure yet. Let me see him one fight and his new camp. You know, in the Nova fight, it was just a little, even though he clearly won, it was just a little too close for my liking. I felt like he should have wiped him out. You know, he arguably lost a round. I think he lost the first round in that fight. It was just a little too close. And, you know, like I said, Sterling's a very tough guy to fight. He's not going to engage you in a war. He's going to stand on the outside and run and throw kicks. And, you know, he could possibly out-volume Barao with that. And so I'm going to pass on Barao, but Barao is my pick to win the fight. I don't think Sterling's going to get a takedown. And when Sterling doesn't get his way, he has a tendency to break. And, you know, he's not fighting Augusto Mendez, who's a jiu-jitsu guy who's going to try to jump guillotines and stuff like that. So, I think Renan's just the better fighter all around, and I think he's going to win. A split decision.
This is a tough one for me to call, man, because I've always been aboard the fade Aljamain Sterling train, man. I mean, I was the original to fade Aljamain with you. I mean, we
plus 350.
plus 350 on Brian Caraway, man. You know what I'm saying? That was the original Aljo fade. I've known this guy is all hype for a very long time. The issue here is that Renan Barao, you know, he hasn't looked the same for a very long time. Even when he went up to 145 pounds in that fight with Nova, he's looking slow. He's gassing out in the first round. Now, I have been looking at his Instagram. The dude's in incredible shape right now. Plus, he weaseled his way to make this an 140-pound catch weight, which I do think is advantageous for Renan Barao. The thing is, if I was guaranteed the Renan Barao that fought Brad Pickett, you know, that's max bet season. But the issue here is this is a very diminished, you know, post 2 TJ beatings, post USADA, post a lot of things.
Stevens.
Oh yeah, Jeremy Stevens happened as well. This is going to surprise a lot of people. I'm actually going to go with Aljamain Sterling. You pick Barao by split. I'm going to go Aljo by split. I think that it's going to be one of those sweaty fights that, you know, it could go either way. Whoever bets on it and loses is going to be super pissed. And I actually think the way that Aljo is going to win is he's not going to engage, you know, in a stand-up brawl, but he'll use certain strikes such as his jab, and then he'll, you know, side kick to the knee, run around the ring. He'll only use strikes like that, and then eventually he might push him up against the fence, land some knees to the thigh, just kill the clock, make it boring. I don't know how he's going to do it, but I think Aljo is going to win a split.
Yeah, man, it's a very tough fight, but make no mistake about it. If Aljo gets through this fight and moves on to, you know, other top guys at 135, he will be faded.
He will be faded indeed. Imagine Aljo versus Tomas Almeida.
Yeah, of course.
So, next up, and man, it already got good, but here it gets even better because Jason the Kid Knight. Now, I'm surprised he's a favorite here. He's minus 125. The comeback on Ricardo the Bully Lamas is plus 105. Now, Shaq, I don't like bullies, man, but what do you think about this fight?
It's a very tough fight for both guys. You know, Lamas, he's been top 5 at 145 for like the last 5-6 years, and we know his game. We know he's well rounded. He can wrestle, he can strike, and we know that his chin is a little questionable. You know, we've seen him get KO'd several times. We've seen him get wobbled several times, but my thing is, look who those are against. Chad Mendez's of the world, the Aldos of the world, the Holloways of the world.
The Yuri Alcantaras.
I mean, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, that was like...
That's more acceptable than Danny Castillo.
That was 20 years ago, but, you know what I'm saying? Look at the guys he's facing. And, you know, Jason Knight, in my opinion, for example, look at all the prospects at 145 over the last year. Doo Ho Choi, he took that beating from Cub Swanson. Yair Rodriguez against Frankie Edgar had to take that beating. Mirsad Bektik versus Darren Elkins, he had to take his first loss.
T-City about to take that beating.
T-City's about to take that beating. And you know, Renato at some point he's gonna have to take his beating as well. So these prospects all have to learn that lesson, and they're generally from these top 5, top 10 vets that have been, you know, holding their spot in the top 10 for years and years and years. And you know, I think that's gonna happen here. I know Jason Knight's got that amazing guard, but I think Lamas is actually going to nullify that, man. I think Lamas is a very smart fighter. He is what he is, you know. He hasn't improved, but he hasn't declined, in my opinion. I think he's going to, you know, get in his guard. I think he's going to beat him on the feet as well. I think he's going to run away, you know, throw kicks, land the bigger shots inside the pocket. You know, he has the wrestling advantage, in my opinion. Knight's got some good takedowns too, but I don't see him taking Lamas down. And I just see Lamas weaseling a decision out. I think he's just going to be the smarter fighter, the more intelligent fighter, the guy that's been in these more experienced situations. Not saying that Knight's experienced, but this is a whole different ball game now. You're not fighting Dan Hooker. You're not fighting a chinny Chad Skelly who sucks at striking. You're not fighting Jim Allers, you know what I'm saying? This is a whole different ballgame now. But I wouldn't be shocked if Knight rose to the occasion and pulled this win off, man. But if he did, boy, that'd be a huge statement, man. Taking out the number 4 or 5 guy in the world.
Yeah, look, Ricardo's really damn good. And one thing that he's known for that he doesn't get a lot of credit for are his kicks to the calf, man, because traditionally, you know, people kick to the thigh. You're used to, you know, you check those kicks, but no one trains checking kicks to the calf, man. And you hear about Jose Aldo, you know, walking with crutches after their fight, and it was 49-46 Aldo. That tells you how hard Ricardo Lamas kicks. You know, I thought Aldo was the hard kicker, right? Ricardo Lamas is no damn slouch at all. Even when you watch that fight with Mendez, he was picking apart Mendez until he got caught with the big shot. What I love about Knight is that he's a born fighter, and that, you know, you can break this guy's nose. You can smash his orbital. You can do whatever you want to him. He's going to laugh at you. He's going to get back up. He's going to keep fighting. So you have to finish this guy. I mean, you can outpoint him. Kawajiri outpointed him. That was on, you know, a week short notice. But in this spot, man, even though I agree with you 100% when you say Ricardo has not declined, I don't think he's declined.
He is what he is.
He's just maintained.
Yeah.
I feel like he's been the same fighter for the last few years. And I think the difference here is actually going to be the hunger of Jason Knight. I think it's going to be 1-1 heading into the third, and it's going to come down to who wants it more. And even though Ricardo is the more experienced guy, I do think that Jason's going to push that pace. You know, Ricardo's going to shoot for a takedown, not get it. Jason's going to be like, oh, we shooting takedowns now? You know, he's going to start talking to him a little bit. He's going to start, you know, the volume's going to start to add up. And I do think that Jason Knight is going to walk home with a 29-28 unanimous decision. So it's going to be a very good fight. It's going to be a nail-biter. I'm staying away from a bet, obviously, but I do have Jason the Kid Knight, man.
Yeah, man, it's a very tough fight. You know, when it was like, at one point I think it was like plus 110 Lamas. You know, I looked into it, but Knight put that fear in me, man. He's so hungry. He's so determined to get these wins, and he that confidence thing, like Conor McGregor, you know, coming up the ranks, that confidence thing is such a hard thing to beat. And like we said, Lamas is what he is. He hasn't declined, but he hasn't improved. So
yeah, and you know, with Lamas, he'll be winning a lot of his fights, but then he'll get caught. You know, I know this was a long time ago, but Yuri Alcantara, Danny Castillo, and most recently Chad Mendez. Not that Jason Knight is some, you know, KO artist, but the chin of Lamas has been cracked before. It can be cracked again. So don't be surprised if Jason does knock him out. That being said, I do think it goes all 3.
Yeah, and you know, like, the reason why I took Lamas is just look at his losses. They're only to the top guys, and I don't think Jason Knight is a top guy yet.
And that's what we're going to find out Saturday night, man. So now it's time for pay-per-view, which I hope all you guys are buying. Support the sport. And man, you ready for this? Because look, Volkan Oezdemir, he's going to look to make it 3 upsets in a row. He's plus 150. And Jimi Manuwa is the number you never bet. He's minus 170. What do you think, man? Is Volkan is third time going to be, a charm? I was going to say the charm, but the first 2 times were charms as well.
Jimi Manuwa has been on quite an impressive, it's a solid streak. He KO'd OSP in devastating, vicious fashion. But let's be honest, Jared, we know what type of fighter OSP is. He's sloppy. He hasn't improved due to him, probably not switching camps for the last 2-3 years. We know what OSP is. He's a one round. He's a one round fighter. He's sloppy. He's all over the place. And then he knocks out Corey Anderson in devastating fashion, vicious fashion, KOs him stiff. But we know the chin of Corey. So a lot of people are putting I see a lot of max bet Jimmys, which I don't blame you. He's KO'd 2 guys stiff in vicious fashion. But me personally, I don't put that much stock into it. I think Volkan would do the same thing to those guys. Volkan beat OSP, and I think he'd KO Corey as well. But those fights never happened. I think Volkan's going to do it again, man. I think Jimi might be, I don't think he's underestimating him by any chance, but I think Jimi has his eyes on that title. I think he's got that little rivalry going on with Cormier. He can almost taste it. And Volkan's that type of guy to just take it from you, man. Misha Serkinov in that fight, going into that fight with Volkan, 1 fight away, 2 fights away from the title. Misha's the top prospect at 205. And I feel like an idiot for not betting that. Well, I was taking a little break off anyways, but plus 300 it was, something like that, 450, and Volkan goes out there and touches him behind the ear and puts him down face first. So that's the type of guy Volkan is. He defies all odds. Coming in on short notice against OSP, the number 5 guy in the world, and taking it to him for 3 rounds. And I think it's going to happen again, man. I think he's going to get a late finish here. I know Jimi has the better power, but I think the longer you let Volkan gather his confidence, and he's not one of those typical combat club guys. Volkan's a soldier. Henry Hoof doesn't have to tell Volkan not to quit. So, so I think he's going to pull off the upset here. I know it's going to be tough. I'm definitely not going to bet on it just because although he's pulled off 2 upsets, the jury's still out on him. We still don't know what he's all about. We've seen him in a 3-round fight, but like I said, we know what type of guy OSP is. He's sloppy. He's all over the place. I want to see him 3 rounds against a guy like Manuwa, who's gone 3 rounds before as well. And not to mention that most of Jimmy's wins are by like TKO injuries, you know what I'm saying? So the jury's still out on him as well. Like I said, Corey and OSP, they're good wins, you know what I'm saying? But those guys aren't top 205ers in my opinion. And I got Volkan by late finish.
It's an interesting fight, man, because if you want to be honest about it, both of them only have 2 impressive wins in the UFC. Exactly. Now, Volkan's only had 2 fights in the UFC, but with Jimi, even though he looked good in those fights against
Kingsbury?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he beat the shit out of Kingsbury, and I forget if Kingsbury quit or if he got injured, and then he beat the shit out of Jimo, and Jimo got injured or quit.
Close decision with Jan.
And then Jimi couldn't even put away Jan Blankovic. He went to a close decision, a fight where they both wobbled. Now,
they clinched up the whole time.
The thing is, Jimi, now that he finally does have 2 highlight reel knockouts under his belt in the UFC, granted one was against Corey Anderson, who, you blow him a kiss and he does the chicken dance. So I'm not sure how much stock to put into that. And at the same time, you watch some of Volkan's regional scene fights, and they were kind of ugly too. But he's rose to the occasion in the UFC, man. He's putting it all together. You know what I like about his fight with OSP, and it's funny because people will compare it, and they'll only compare the final result. They'll be like, well, look at the knockout. One guy had a knockout, and one guy had a split decision. That's how most people look at it. The way I look at it is Jimi lost the first round to OSP. Volkan won the first round to OSP. Jimi caught him in the second round. Volkan won the second round, and then Volkan maybe lost the third round, and the fight wasn't going that long with Jimi. Look, every fight is different. MMA math doesn't work, but now these 2 are going to fight. I hope you're right, bro, because I just want to see a crazy upset. I want to see some crazy-ass shit happen. I want to see this dude Volkan get 3 upsets in a row, but my gut's telling me Jimi Manuwa is going to find a way to end that win streak, catch him, and get his own title shot.
Yeah, it's going to be a good fight, man. Jimmy's 1 fight away, and if Volkan wins this, he's right there as well.
Next up, we got one of your favorite fighters, Donald Cerrone. He's plus 135. I was about to say the comeback, but Robbie Lawler is minus 155. What are you thinking, man?
It's a very good fight. Robbie, if you guys don't know, he left ATT. Now he's with Henry Hoof Combat Club. And, I'm sure they are emphasizing that left kick to the body, the left straights to the body, all the body attacks. And, Cerrone, he is what he is. He's got that. He's well-rounded. He can do everything. But he's coming off a devastating ass whooping from 2 devastating ass whoopings. And Jorge Masvidal, that was a life changer right there. Show me better body shooting in the history of the game. When you get your body butchered to the point of that, you know what I'm saying? So I gotta go with Lawler in this one. But I'm not gonna bet on this fight. I'm gonna enjoy it as a fan. I definitely think Cerrone could take it just because who knows where Robbie's head's at. He's the champion. He goes out there, gets knocked out by T Wood in the first round. And we know he's gonna get that, 6-figure show money, and he's switching camps and let's see him win this fight first before he make any judgments. But I think Cerrone's on his way out. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I think Cerrone's on his way out. The guy's made so much money doing this, and in that George fight, I feel like his body's had enough at this point, man.
He got knocked out twice in that fight.
Exactly, he got knocked out 2 times. So I think he's on his way out, and but I can't say that Robbie's not on his way out as well. So I'm gonna go with Robbie just because I think he's too strong, and we know what happens when Cerrone faces these real fighters, these southpaws. Most of his losses are to southpaws, and we know when Cerrone doesn't have that mental edge on you, when he generally loses these fights. Rafael dos Anjos, Showtime Pettis, Jorge Masvidal. So I'm gonna go with Robbie. I think he's gonna land a left kick to the body and then finish him up with a overhand left, but I wouldn't be shocked if Cerrone, high kicked him to the head and knocked him out or won a decision here. Cerrone's very educated. He can point fight as well, even though most of his fights end in finish. And it's going to be a good fight, arguably fight of the night.
I've been breaking down Cowboy Cerrone fights for years, and his fights are actually the easiest to call. And the reason why is because if you're not in the top 5, he'll absolutely destroy you. And if you are in the top 5, you'll absolutely destroy him. Well, Robbie Lawler is in the top 5, so, based on Cerrone's history, he's going to get finished in this fight. But fights aren't contested on paper, as you know, and Robbie Lawler has been in a shit ton of wars, not just the 2 Hendricks fights, the 2 Rory fights, the Condit fight, taking that damage against Woodley, even against Nick Diaz fucking 15 years ago. Matt Brown, it adds up, and all the Strikeforce wars. So it's one of those things where I was actually looking at the fight doesn't go the distance prop, but then I thought about it and I was like, well, all of Lawler's fights basically go to the 5th round, so why the fuck would I play that? This is a 3-round fight. But at the same time, these southpaws with educated body kicks with serious pressure, they always give Cowboy problems. Evan Dunham's a southpaw, but he doesn't have pressure. That's why Cowboy beat the fuck out of him. But you saw Cowboy straight quit the second time he fought RDA. And we know for a fact if Kelvin fought Cowboy, that would have been a massacre. So if Robbie's got his head on straight, man, I see him just walking Cowboy down and knocking him out. But that's a big if, man, because he leaves the gym that brought him to the belt. And the reason he left was because he lost his belt to Woodley, right? And, Woodley is apparently ATT, even though he never goes to ATT. He was Rufus Sport when he won the belt. So Robbie walks back into ATT after losing his belt, and then he sees a big picture of Woodley on the wall. So, of course, he left ATT, you know what I'm saying, man? But now he's with Henry Hooft. And it's going to be interesting if, is Robbie just showing up to get that 6-figure paycheck, or is he hungry to go out there and win the belt again? It all comes down to that because we've seen what a non-motivated Robbie Lawler looks like. And if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, go watch any of his fights in Strikeforce. Go watch him shadow box around Tim Kennedy for 3 rounds. Go watch him shadow box around Babalu for 3 rounds. That's what an unmotivated Robbie Lawler looks like. So if he comes out there and doesn't throw a strike and is just, using a bunch of footwork, not throwing shit, don't be surprised. However, if he is motivated, if he does have that fire in him, I think he's going to run through Cerrone. So, it's just about rolling the dice and seeing which guy you're going to get, because if Robbie's not on his game, Cowboy has a very sneaky high kick, and we saw Robbie get rocked with that high kick against Rory, against Condit. So Robbie can be put on
ice skates.
He can do the chicken dance. Don't make no mistake about it. But with Cowboy, you kick him to the body, he starts making faces, and he's not very confident when someone attacks him right out the gate very hard. So Robbie's got to do that. If Robbie comes out here with the right game plan, he's putting Cowboy away in the first round. But if he's unmotivated, it could get sketchy and Cowboy could catch him. So I got to pick one. I'm going to pick a motivated Robbie Lawler to finish Cowboy Cerrone. Now, man, we have a minus 1375 favorite on the card as well, Shaq. Because Cyborg is taking on Tanya Evinger, who's plus 900. So, you know, I would assume we're going to pick the minus 1375. But let's talk about the real issue here. Will the fight start round 2?
You know, that's the prop I was looking at. And, you know, I got burned again. Cyborg versus Leslie Smith. I took that shot to see if I lost on that shot on Leslie Smith trying to make it to the second round. And, you know, I'm going to stay away from it, man, because it's not a I don't know much about Evinger. I mean, when you're fighting these jobbers in Invicta, you can easily look good. And she lost one. She got armbarred, but it got changed to a no contest. So chicks in Invicta can compete with her, you know what I'm saying? And Cyborg, man, she's a freak, man. When she hits chicks, these chicks are already scared of her going in. She's big. She looks, no offense to her, she's a great fighter. But she looks like she's she, you know, I mean, you know what she looks like, man. She hits like a guy, and these chicks are scared of her, man. And I don't see anything changing. I think she's gonna go out here, touch her up, and, you know, get her out of here in the first. But I wouldn't be shocked if Tanya made it to the second. She strikes me as a very tough chick, and I just don't see anything she has for her. Cyborg has the advantage everywhere.
I hope it goes past 1.5 rounds just so people can sweat. And but look, Evinger, you know, off her back, she does attack with submissions. I just think all that's going to be neutralized, not to mention she's a natural bantamweight. Cyborg's a natural fucking welterweight. You know what I'm saying, bro? So, yeah, I would imagine Cyborg puts her away early, but I do hope that it gets sweaty because you should not be parlaying minus 1375 favorites if you're sharp. Now, here we go. You ready? Shit's about to get real here. Now, I bet people that parlayed Cyborg are going to say they hope this one gets sweaty for me. And you know what, man? I kind of hope it does because there's nothing like earning that win. You know what I mean? Something about... Like, remember when Zaleski got that split, even though we thought he won every round? Yeah. There's something about earning that split decision I really like in this gambling game, especially when it's a plus 180 dog. But here it's not a plus 180 dog. Here it's minus 200 with the comeback on Demian Maia at plus 175. And, man, Demian Maia, talk about defying the odds. You know, I've been picking against this guy for a long time and getting it wrong almost every time. But I think that finally... Hopefully, I might get it right this time. Is Demian going to backpack the T-Wood?
You know, I stayed away from it just for that fact right there. You know, I couldn't find anyone to parlay T-Wood with. I do think T-Wood is just a horrible matchup for him. I kind of see this fight going similar to the Dung and Kim fight. You know, I think Demian shoots and he gets stuffed very easily early, and Tyron's pressure is just too much. You know, when you're... I thought Demian arguably lost to Jorge. I mean, anytime they were in standing exchanges, Jorge was fucking him up every single time with the leg kicks. And, you know, Demian just backpacked him, had that top control. And, you know, George, who really is a 55er and nowhere near.
We bet George, though.
Yeah, but I didn't bet George. But, you know.
I bet George.
You know, I thought George was going to win the fight. But Tyron's just a different level when it comes to, you know, physical strength. I mean, just look at him, you know. We saw him in the hotel when he fought Robbie, and I mean, that dude's huge. He's cocked. And, you know, I think he's going to stuff the takedown and knock Demian out in the first round, but I stayed away because Demian Maia is Demian Maia. You have to respect. What if he does get on top? Oh, shit, now you're in fucking trouble because we know the cardio. If Tyron gets gassed out, we know what happens when Tyron gets gassed out. He backs into the fence. And backing into the fence against Demian Maia is... You're asking to lose. You're gonna get taken down. You're gonna get subs. So, you know, I stayed away from it, and I couldn't find anyone to parlay T-Wood with. I wasn't gonna force it with Jones or, you know, someone else or Dober, for example. So, you know, I'm gonna go with T-Wood, but I'm definitely gonna pass. But I got him by first round KO.
I got T-Wood as well, man. Now T-Wood has a very high takedown defense. The only person to take him down in the UFC is Rory McDonald, and you know, Rory did it by
beat him first, yeah.
By flustering him badly the first 2 rounds before he took him down in the third. Now, T-Wood backs himself into the fence every single fight, and it's going to happen here too. But the reason why it might kind of actually be a good thing is because the fence is kind of, it's like another leg for takedown defense. You can balance on the fence and use that to defend takedowns instead of, being in the center and having nothing to lean on. And I think that's kind of what Woodley does. He kind of feels a sense of comfort against that fence, and also he's able to explode, as you've seen with many of his knockouts. They've come when he's been up against the fence, as, the Koscheck knockout, for example. That's the first one that comes off the top of my head. The way he closes the distance, I've never seen anyone close the distance as fast, as explosive, as dynamic as T. Wood. But I've also never seen anyone backpack grown men the way that Demian Maia does. Demian Maia, he kind of looks like a Brazilian Johnny Depp. You know what I'm saying, bro? He looks like the captain from Pirates. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and like the main reason why I passed, if Demian get on top, the fight could arguably be over. Not saying that he's going to sub him, but when he rides out that top control, then fuck, you're hoping on a KO now.
Yeah, I'm definitely hoping on a KO. But look, when you've seen Woodley with similar opponents to mine, not that there's any similar opponents, but I would say Jake Shields is somewhat similar. Woodley stuffed all the takedowns. He did lose the fight officially, but he arguably won that fight. But that was a fight where he learned from his mistakes, and since that point, he's gone on to win the championship. And he has gone 5 rounds more than once and been just as fresh in the 5th round as he was in the first, as you saw in the Wonderboy fight when he dropped Wonderboy in that 5th and final round. Now, with Maia, he historically gasses the later that fights go on. You remember that 10-8 round when Ryan LaFleur 10-8'd him in the 5th round, he starts flopping to his back. You remember the Rory McDonald fight. He wins the 1st round, then the 2nd and 3rd round, he's the fucking he's the walking mummy. So one fight that I think is really important to watch is a fight between Tyron Woodley and Andre Galvao, because even though Andre Galvao is short and he's orthodox, he's got a serious jiu-jitsu pedigree. And it's somewhat comparable to Demian Maia, and I'm pretty damn sure his game plan was the same as Demian Maia. So what Woodley would do in that fight was, he would obviously stuff the takedowns. His sprawl was incredible. But what happens is these jiu-jitsu guys try to get half guard because they like to get that deep half, and then they like to go for a sweep from there or use it to take the back. Whenever Andre Galvao would try to get that half guard, Woodley wouldn't stay there and be like, yeah, you know what, I'm heavy on top, I can neutralize your guard. He'd be like, fuck this, stand back up with me. And the fundamental mistake that cost Jorge Masvidal the fight was that he engaged in Demian Maia's half guard, because Demian Maia would try to take down Jorge, and Jorge would stuff every single takedown. But then Maia pulls guard, gets into that half guard, and Jorge, he thought he was safe in that half guard, and that's when Maia was able to take his back. It was just a simple error that Jorge Masvidal made, and I don't believe that Tyron Woodley's going to make that same mistake. It's a very simple error. So if T. Wood goes out there, he stuffs these takedowns, and then as soon as, because Maia's chaining the takedowns like a motherfucker, that's what he does. As soon as Maia is unsuccessful with those takedowns and he starts to pull the half guard, that's going to be the moment of the fight where we say, all right, T. Wood, you got to get up right now. If T. Wood stays in his half guard, that's when I walk away, from the screen. That's when I throw the remote at the screen and walk away. However, if T. Wood does what I think he's going to do, what I know he's capable of doing, when Maia tries to get that half guard, that's when we stand back up and make him try again. If we do that, it's smooth sailing and we knock him out in 1. So it all comes down to that, man. But I do think T. Wood's smart enough to do that. I think T. Wood, I love T. Wood, man. I know a lot of people love to hate him. Maybe that's why I like him so much, because he's not a very liked champion, but I like him a lot. I think he's one of the most underrated champions in the UFC, not just in terms of his physical abilities, but I think he's one of the smartest guys in the UFC. I think the dude's brilliant, and he knows how to win fights. He knows how to use his physical gifts to his advantage. I think he's going to do that here. I think he's going to knock out the very tough, very dangerous, very respectable Demian Maia, and it's going to all be because of the simple key fact. When Maia tries to get that half guard, Woodley's not going to let him. If I'm wrong and Woodley lets him get that half guard, then hey, I'll take my L like a man, like I always do. You've never heard me cry about an L. But I fully expect on cash in this, man. I don't think Woodley's dumb enough to play in this dude's half guard. So, 4 units, Woodley Moicano, plus 157. Let's fucking get it.
Yeah, man, I agree, and I hope that bet cashes for you.
Yeah, I hope so too, man. But what do you think about this reasoning? Because when you see Maia chain these takedowns together, people have been able to stuff it kind of like Jorge did. It's just that when you engage in his half guard because you think you're safe there, that's when you're really fucked. And I just think T. Wood's too smart for that.
Yeah, well, in that 3rd round, in the Jorge fight when it was 1-1, I think Demian ended up catching a kick or something like that, and they, went all the way from one side of the fence to the other. Jorge stuffed as long as he could, but once they hit the fence, he took that back, got that hook in, rided out that top control. But, I think T Wood's just a little bit too physically strong. I definitely understand that parlay. But, I had Moicano at a lower line to play enough straight, so, I just took that. And, lately all my parlays have been hitting, so, honestly, I figured out my luck was probably going to run out if I tried to do it again. So, I just kept it with Moicano. But like you said, I got T Wood.
Look, I understand the risk, and I understand there's a good chance Moicano wins and then T Wood loses, and I'm going to be really pissed off because, it is my policy to not do parlays and to play shit straight. But I'm rolling the dice here, man, because I was either going to do 4 units straight on Moicano and then 4 units straight on Woodley, have an 8-unit risk. I'm cutting my risk in half now. However, I'm cutting my risk in half in terms of amount risk, but in terms of the actual outcomes, both have to hit for me to win. So we'll see what happens, man. It's going to be very intriguing. Yeah. I cannot wait to sweat this one out, but I cannot wait to sweat this one out coming out a winner. You know what I'm saying, man? That's the best. But speaking of the best, Johnny Bones Jones. Wow, he's right. He's right in max bet range, my man. He's minus 250. The comeback on Daniel DC Cormier is plus 230. And now, man, the first time they fought, I did max bet John Jones. It was, 4-1, arguably 5-0. It was a one-sided fight. And now they meet again, but DC is actually the champion now.
Yeah, John Jones is the number 1 or number 2 greatest fighter of all time, in my opinion. And, going into that first fight, DC on paper had the wrestling advantage, but when they got in there, Jones out-wrestled him. And rather easily. DC had a couple nice takedowns, but Jones popped up every single time. My thing with Jones is, eventually there will be someone to catch him on the inside when he reaches out and tries to hand fight. Someone will catch him with a big hook one of these days. I thought it was going to be Rumble Johnson, but, unfortunately he quits a lot.
He quit the sport.
He quit the sport. But I don't think DC has the one-punch knockout power to do that to him. And I just think John is just going to do what he always does. Edge out every single round, win 49-46. I think he's going to take down Cormier. I think he's going to get up if Cormier takes him down very quickly. And I just see him landing those elbows, landing those side kicks to the knees, just landing the typical John Jones arsenal, man. And he's going to prove that he's the greatest fighter of all time.
I really want to talk about this John Jones versus OSP fight because people shit all over John Jones for that fight. But Shaq, since we, break down every single card, we watch, every single fighter on every single card. We watch thousands upon thousands of fights, right? So when it finally came down to watching Jones versus OSP again, going into it, I'm like, yeah, Jones looked like shit, this and that. But then I watch it, I'm like, this motherfucker's damn good, man, because we've been watching thousands upon thousands of fighters, and then you get the chance to watch a John Jones fight, and you're reminded how damn good he is. You're reminded why he is the best fighter, pound for pound, on planet Earth. Don't give me no Demetrius Johnson shit. John Jones is the number 1 pound for pound fighter. I don't think it's even debatable. I personally don't even think Demetrius is top 5 pound for pound, but that's a discussion for another time. And I hope you guys give me shit for that, even though I'm right. Now, as far as this is concerned, man, Jones fucking worked OSP every single round, man. He didn't take any unnecessary risks. He did whatever he wanted to. He took, 3 punches the entire fight? 3 punches in a UFC championship level fight, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was an easy performance, man. And it was also one of those things where he was training to fight DC. It was a late switch up, man. And it's a completely different body type. So he kind of just coasted and got the win. But he's fully prepared for DC. I feel like we're going to see things we didn't see in that OSP fight. And look, he's got a 12-inch reach advantage. You know that, Shaq? 12-inch reach advantage? But more importantly, he uses that 12-inch reach advantage, whether it's the jab, whether it's the eye poke. Yeah, hey, you do whatever you can. You get 2 warnings, so take advantage of those 2 warnings, get 2 eye pokes in, kick him in the balls one time, get a warning, and then we start kicking his knee. Then we start kicking his thigh. Then we take down the Olympic wrestler. Because, look, John Jones took him down like 5 times. Remember when he took him down like 3 times in a row, that first fight? How humiliating that was for someone on the caliber of Daniel Cormier. I'm a huge Cormier fan. I like the fact that he is the little guy in the division and he's the champ, and the way he closes the distance. He's got the reach of Cormier's got a 72-inch reach. There's Shane Burgo's got a larger reach than him. You know what I'm saying, dude? So I like how he closes the distance. I like how he lands big bombs. I like how he changes his takedowns. And the dude's tough as fuck. I mean, we've seen him get dropped by Gustafsson. We've seen him take a big head kick by Rumble Johnson and just come forward and win the fight. The thing is, Jones has him outmatched everywhere, and Jones is just as tough, if not tougher. I'll say tougher because when it came time to embrace the grind in the 4th and 5th round of their last fight, Jones was the one that did it, man. Now, we can talk about all the outside the cage issues. I'm not convinced Jones was a victim of USADA like DC's trying to say he was. I don't really think that's the case. I think the dude, he likes to smoke weed. What's the big deal? And he likes to do a little coke every now and then, man. I mean, honestly, what's the fucking big deal? It's not like he's doing it every day. If he was doing it every day, there's no chance he'd be performing like he performs, man. But, when you're as rich as he is, when you're crashing Bentleys, when, people are offering you coke at a party, okay. And then the next weekend he goes out there and he whoops DC. So I don't really hold any of that shit against him, man. Maybe the hit and run, you could have dealt with that a little better. But as far as the fighting, man, he's the best fighter on planet Earth. I'm here to watch people fight. I'm not here to fucking be a white knight and be like, oh, but he doesn't, oh, but he smokes pot. Oh, but he cusses. Oh, but he does this and that. I don't give a fuck. I want to know who the best fighter is. Fist fight on a Saturday night inside a steel cage. Jon Jones is the best fighter on the planet. That's what I'm tuning in for. I want to see real men fight. That's what Jon Jones is, and I think he's going to get it done. Late submission. I think he's going to submit the Olympian, something that's never been done and will probably never be done ever again. Look, it's probably going to go the distance. We both know that. But I want to be bold and go on record and predict the finish for the greatest of all time, Jon Jones, or as my friends in Brazil would say, Jon Jonas. So I got Jon Jones here, man.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. And if Jon wins this fight, man, he's the greatest of all time. He's neck and neck with. But let's wait for McGregor to come back and see how he does. Them two are my 1 and 2 pound for pound, and those two are competing for the greatest of all time. And you're right, DJ is not top 5 pound for pound.
Chris Carriazo. We'll talk about it another time.
When you're fighting Wilson Hayes, Chris Carriazo, Horiguchi, Bagantinov, Tim Elliott, come on, bro.
Yeah. That's all I got to say about that. But I do need some DraftKings advice, so let's hit up Kyle Marley for the Big Marley Minute. And joining us now on the Big Marley Minute is Big Marley himself. Kyle, how's it going?
Oh, man, not bad at all. I'm ready for this fight. Can't wait to see Jon Jones back in action.
I actually had a good card last week, but one fight that I got wrong that you got very, very right is the All-American Chris Weidman, man.
It's a good pick, huh? Yeah, I cleaned up last week. I did pretty well, and that was a big part of it. Chris Weidman killing it with how many points? 113 points, and he's only 30% owned in big contest. That's a good play.
Yeah, Weidman definitely came through for you. I didn't see that happening at all, man. And but you know what? Zaleski and Jimi saved my night.
Nice. So, yeah, stepping it up. Next week you'll do even better. Or, well, this week you'll do even better. And then just keep getting better, man. The more you play, the more you learn.
That's right. And, we're going to talk about Jon Jones. We're going to talk about Tyron Woodley. We're going to talk about all these great fighters. But something that really stood out to me, Kyle, and I want your opinion on this, man, is that there's a fight between Drew Dober and Josh Burkman. And, normally I would stay very far away from this fight. But normally I'd also assume that a fight between Drew Dober and Josh Burkman is a dead pick'em, right? Well, they currently got Drew Dober minus 360 with the comeback on Josh Burkman at plus 300, which I think is very off, man. You think Josh Burkman might be worth a look here?
I think he is. Yeah, I think that line is way too wide. I don't know. I don't think Dober should be minus 360 against anybody, to tell you the truth. I get it. Burkman's on the end of his career, and most likely he doesn't win the fight, but I wouldn't say minus 360 most likely. So, yeah, if I'm taking a shot on this fight, it's going to be Burkman. However, I don't really care for this fight in general from a DraftKings perspective, just because if Burkman wins, that's what you want is takedowns, but he just does not score highly. I think in his one win he had 77 points, so it's not very good. But at the same time, if he gets Dober down for a round, then that takes away from the points that Dober could score in a win. So I don't really like either of them, but if I had to choose a side, I'm going Burkman.
And for the fans, bear with us. We're going to get to the exciting fights here in a second. But Kyle, look, there's this kid named Jared Brooks, and from what I've seen on the regional scene, This kid can wrestle his ass off. We know takedowns score big points in DraftKings. He's fighting a guy in Eric Shelton who he's very talented, he's very athletic, but his one downfall is the takedown defense. Are we looking to put Jared Brooks on our lineup?
I do like Brooks. I like this fight in general. Unlike the last one, I like both of these guys. So if you think Sheldon's going to win, he has to be in your lineup because I think this is going to be a good fight, a lot of ground scrambles, which is what we like. And if I'm picking a side, I like, as you said, Brooks because he's the wrestler. I love the wrestlers in DraftKings. But he's never faced anybody like Sheldon yet. So what's throwing me off is the betting line because Brooks is now minus 150, but Albu and Moicano are below him, and they're both 150 and minus 165. So it's kind of taken me away from Brooks, just more onto those two for the betting line. However, I mean, they're not going to get as many takedowns as Brooks is. If he wins, he's going to get a lot of points, and I like that.
Jason the Kid Knight, look, he's taking a step up in competition fighting the vet Ricardo Lamas. But before I ask you your opinion on this, can you confirm with me that Jason Knight's been a very high DraftKings scorer throughout his UFC career?
Every fight he scored more than the previous fight. So in his first win, he scored 73 over Allers, 83 over Hooker, 102 over Caceres, and then in his last fight, 108 over Skelly. So that's decent. Definitely those last two over 100. That's what you love to see in the GPP. So I do not hate this play at all. I'm going to be on both sides of the fight. I keep going back and forth with my pick, but right now I'm leaning towards Knight. So I think I will have quite a few Knight lineups. However, if you're throwing in multiple lineups, I would not hate if you're doing one lineup, throw in Knight, and then do the exact same lineup but with Lamas instead. So you guaranteed the winner of that fight in one of them. And if it scores high, maybe you're going to win a GPP.
Look, Lamas, he's a grizzled vet. We know that he's been in there with everyone. He wins most of the fights he's in, but the times that he has lost, I mean, we're talking devastating, vicious knockouts against Yuri Alcantara, against Danny Castillo, against Chad Mendes. So you could be looking at a Jason the Kid Knight knockout victory here, and if you said that every single time he scored more points, I would assume knocking out Ricardo Lamas as an underdog would score more than 108 points.
Yeah, it could very well could, especially if it's like first round. If he gets the knockdown to go with the knockout, the knockdown is 10 points, first round is 90 points, so then it's just all significant strikes are added on top of that. So I can see it being more than 108 if you can get that knockout. I don't see it being a knockout. I think this is just going to be a good 3-round fight, a little bit of back and forth. But if you're right, yeah, you better be putting Knight on your team.
Now, Donald Cerrone's fighting Robbie Lawler. Look, on paper, someone's getting knocked out, but obviously fights aren't contested on paper. Are you putting both guys in separate lineups, or do you have a lean a certain way?
I'm actually leaning more towards Cerrone because he's the underdog. Lawler is 8,500 on DraftKings, and he just does not score very highly. He hadn't scored over 100 points since the Volker fight. And then let's see, McDonald 73, Hendricks 75, Ellenberger 94, Brown 86, Hendricks 88, McDonald 85, and then Condit 86. So it's just I want more than 100 points if I'm going to get somebody that's that expensive. So I would rather have Cerrone, who I know is always going to put up high points if he scores. And I mean, I don't know if Lawler's on the same supplements he was when he was on his crazy run. So that also makes me want to lead towards Cerrone a little bit more, and he's 7,700 on DraftKings. So if you're going to pick some underdogs on this card, I like Cerrone to be one of them.
Well, you got a fight between Jimi, Manuwa, and Volkan Oezdemir, and the way both of these guys have been fighting lately, none of their fights are going the distance. They're knocking their opponents out. I would assume one of them is getting knocked out. The question is, where's the value here?
The value is on Oezdemir, which is really throwing me off because I like Manuwa quite a bit. I think he gets the knockout. I've not been too impressed with Oezdemir. I was on him over OSP just because I'm not too impressed with OSP either. But that was pretty much just a sloppy win. And then his win over Serkinov was more of a fluke. Like Serkinov must have been knocked out in training the week before because he barely got touched. It was ridiculous. However, he's $7,400 on DraftKings. And if he wins, I mean, he's been scoring a lot of points. So if he wins, he's going to score real high. And that's what you want on your team. And Manuwa was always he's up at 8,800, so he has to get the knockout if he's going to score highly. That's the difference, and that's what's making me not get as much Manuwa as I planned on, is what the betting line is looking like right now. Let me see. Oezdemir plus 150. Yeah, that's way better than everyone down there in his range. So he might actually make a few of my lineups, even though I don't really like him too much in this fight.
Now, Tyron Woodley versus Demian Maia, this could also be one of those cases where you put both guys on different lineups, because if Tyron Woodley wins this fight, I would assume he's going to knock out Demian Maia in the first round, but we know when Maia wins fights, he backpacks people, he gets a crazy amount of takedowns. So what are you doing with this one?
I actually like Woodley quite a bit. I think you're right. I think he will get that knockout. I was on Maia in his last fight. Glad I got the win, but I just don't see him doing that against Woodley. I think it'll be too much. I don't think he'll get him down, but I am worried about the backpacking, which doesn't really score any points in DraftKings because he's not getting that takedown with a backpack. However, if I'm making, let's say, 10 lineups, I do want Maia in maybe one or two just in case he does get that submission early. But I'm taking a stand on this. I like Woodley, and I like Woodley early, so he'll be in quite a few of my lineups.
Well, I'm with you from a betting perspective, man, so I hope we're right on that. Now, before we talk about the main event, are you looking at all at someone like Barao, maybe our boy Moicano, or even an intriguing featherweight matchup between Andre Fili and the newcomer Calvin Kattar?
The Barao-Sterling fight, I think, is a fade. Either way, I don't think either guy scores very highly in a win, so I would fade it altogether. Let's see here. Moicano, I think I would rather bet him. I do like him to win, but I was looking at his stats today from previous fights, and he's just not scoring very highly. So I don't know how much he'll score in this fight, which is throwing me off, but I do think he wins, and his price is not too crazy. So he'll be in some of my lineups. I'm just not sure how many yet. And then, yeah, I'm really intrigued in that Fili Kattar fight. Kattar fight. Just because I don't know enough about Kattar, but I think the betting line is a little bit too wide on that. With Fili being minus 380, we just haven't seen enough of Kattar, so I don't know if that minus 380 is warranted when you got guys like Jon Jones that are minus 255 and cheaper on DraftKings.
That's a very good point, man. Now, when we talk about a guy like Jon Jones, we're talking about the greatest of all time, but his last however many fights have gone the distance. That being said, man, does he score a lot of points when it goes the distance?
Yeah, I think the least amount of points he's ever scored is like 88 or something like that. And I mean, I'm going to say right now, like you say, it's max bet season. I'm all in on Jon Jones this week, especially from a betting standpoint. But the thing about it with DraftKings is if you're playing in those huge tournaments, like the main one, the $8 that 29,000 people are in, he's probably going to be 50% owned. So that's 15,000 lineups with Jon Jones. So you kind of might want to differentiate yourself when it comes to those bigger tournaments. But I like Jon Jones to score over 100 points. So he's for sure going to be on my cash team. If he loses, he's still going to put up a whole bunch of points, but I do not see him losing. It's just those bigger tournaments where ownership comes into play. Those are the ones you might want to stay away from them.
Well, Kyle, before I let you go, man, anything I'm missing, anything I'm leaving out?
Just the scariest person on the card, Cyborg. I think Evinger is probably a fade for me, but Cyborg, I don't know how she does not score over 100 points, obviously, and she is by far the biggest favorite on the card. I'm thinking she's a lock for cash as well. The only problem is you're going to have to go with one of those underdogs down low. So I would not fade Cyborg this week just because of the price. I think she'll pay it off and probably score more points than anybody else on the card.
Yeah, but I mean, we're talking about a minus 1375 favorite here, Kyle.
I know. That's what we want on DraftKings. We're not talking about betting. We're talking about DraftKings. She's only 9,600 on DraftKings.
Okay. That ain't too bad,
so
right?
So that's only $400 more than Fili. I don't see why you'd want to play Fili when you can just go up $400, get Cyborg. You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying, man. Well, Kyle, it's been a pleasure as always. Slowly but surely, my DraftKings game is being stepped up. I appreciate all the help as always, man. And the fans have been hitting me up. They love the Big Marley Minute because even when I'm wrong, you know, the rarity that happens, right, Kyle? No, but even when I'm wrong and I'm picking Kelvin Gastelum and Teru I got Kyle Marley over here picking Gray Maynard and Chris Weidman, so I really appreciate it, my man. No matter what, someone is winning on Half the Battle. The fans can follow you at Big Marley 3. Kyle, it's always a pleasure. Anything else you want to tell the fans before we talk next week?
Yeah, if you want to try and win Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather tickets, there's a $20 contest on DraftKings. So if you can win that tournament, you can go to the fight. It's worth, I think, over $12,000, so it's definitely worth taking the shot.
Hey.
Yeah, if I don't win it, I hope somebody listening to the show does.
What tournament? MMA just for this weekend?
Yep, this week. You go to MMA, and then it's, I think, the second one on the list. It's called Fight of the Decade in Las Vegas. $20 entry, and then it'll get you, let's see here. Yeah, it'll get you 2 tickets, which is it's like a $10,000 value. And then they also give you $2,500 for air and hotel fees. So,
and how many people
enter
that?
Not a bad deal. 1,117.
Yeah,
it is a long shot. You're gonna have to go contrarian somewhere. But I cleaned up last weekend. I beat a lot more people than that. So it's not impossible, guys. You can make it happen. $20 could put you in that fight.
But man, $20. You know, it sounds like too good to be true, because I'm gonna be in there competing with the Sharks, Kyle Marley, with Sun Tzu, with the real DraftKings players.
Hey man, anybody can win it. You know what you're talking about. You can beat us for sure.
Well, next time we speak, I will be in the executive suite at Mayweather-McGregor, my friend, after I win this $20 tournament this weekend. Kyle, always appreciate the time, my man, and we'll talk next week, bro.
All right, man. Good luck.
And man, if we enter this 1,000-person DraftKings pool and we win it, man, we could be front row at Mayweather-McGregor.
Yeah, but you got a 1 in 1,000 chance to win. So, but hey, it is what it is. But Kyle, is in the position that he's not lucky. He earned that position that he's in. So that's why he's the DraftKings man.
Yeah, that's why he's on Half the Battle. So Shaq, we gotta talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch. So UFC 214, what is the fight to watch, man?
The fight to watch for me is going to be Donald Cerrone versus Robbie Lawler. Now, Dan, I know you know me. I love to see Cerrone take a good ass whooping. No offense to him, but it is what it is. And, I'm interested to see what type of Robbie Lawler shows back up, man. After taking that L and, the fights leading up to that, I want to see what type of mental state he's in. I want to see if he's showing up for that paycheck or he's coming to fight for real. And Cerrone, to be honest, I think his career is on the line. If he loses this, where does he go? He's always going to be in entertaining fights, but if he loses this in devastating fashion, I wouldn't be surprised if he hung it up. This guy he's accomplished everything. He's made all the money in the world, and just from a fan standpoint, these two are two of the most exciting fighters to ever do it. And Robbie's got vicious power, and Cerrone always has that intangible for landing the out-of-nowhere high kick or just having a great all-around performance. So that's going to be my fight to watch.
Yeah, when you got Robbie Lawler and Donald Cowboy Cerrone throwing down, that's obviously one of the fights to watch because it's going to be super violent. I know they're friends, but, with certain guys, it doesn't matter if they're friends, because T. Wood and Robbie were friends too, and you saw how vicious that one went down. So, yeah, I do think that's definitely one of your fights to watch. But for me, aside from the main event, I got to go with Jason the Kid Knight versus Ricardo Lamas. Tell me when there's been one boring Jason the Kid Knight fight. He has a chance here. If he goes out there and beats a guy in Ricardo Lamas, we're talking about a future star, man, because, he's been jumping up the rankings like no one's business, and it's only a certain select few that can get a win over a guy as good and as tough as Ricardo Lamas. So if Jason can do that, watch out. But if Ricardo goes out there and beats Jason Knight, that'll show that, hey, man, he's hungry. He's right back in there to beat a very, young and tough up-and-comer such as Jason Knight. That would do wonders for Ricardo Lamas. So that's my fight to watch. Now, Shaq, who is your fighter to watch for UFC 214?
My fighter to watch is Renato Moicano. He's my only bet on the card. And like I said, I think he's the top prospect at 145 pounds. And I think he's a future top contender. I think this guy's going to be in a title fight in about a year. Like I said, he has no holes in his game. Tell me one hole he has. He's proven to me he's comfortable everywhere, moving back, moving forwards, on the ground. And I just think he's going to outclass Ortega in every aspect of the game.
And I hope you're right because there's money on the line.
Exactly.
Now, My fighter to watch is the champ, Tyron T. Woodley. I think he's one of the most underrated and disrespected champions in the entire sport. I feel like people don't really get him in terms of his fighting style and his personality outside the cage. I like him a lot, man. I think he's actually a really funny dude, and people don't really get his sense of humor. You know, people try to act like he ducks fights. He just fought Wonder Boy twice. Now he's fighting Demian Maia. Before that, he fought Robbie Lawler. Before that, he fought Carlos Condit. Tyron Woodley ain't ducking anybody. He's fighting all the best guys on planet Earth, and I really think he's one of the most disrespected champions on the planet. And I think he goes out there and knocks out Demian Maia. He might finally start to get the respect that he deserves. So for that reason, Tyron Woodley is your fighter to watch. Now, Shaq, we did it, man. UFC 214, it's going down this Saturday, live on pay-per-view, Anaheim, California. I can't wait, man.
Yeah, man, I can't wait. I hope my bet wins. I'm very confident. I'm confident yours is going to win as well. And we're going to be doing a lot of high-fiving and boas and isos. So I think it's going to be a good night.
It's going to be a good night. Indeed, man. Last week, since we didn't talk about it earlier in the show, I mean, we both had successful weekends. It's just, Weidman came through. And you know what, man? I'm actually happy for Weidman, man. His back was up against the wall. He was in his hometown. I'm happy for the guy, man.
Yeah, I fell into that trap again, of a fighter being done. I've been starting to see it from the outside looking in that, these fights where a guy's done, he's on a 3-fight skid and everyone's counting him out. Generally, a lot of the times they come back and burn us and, have a performance. They still have something left. But, my parlay of Chris Wade and Jimi Rivera cash, Zaleski had a fight of the night performance against Lyman Good at plus 180, so those two won. But, I did lose on Kelvin. It's no big deal. I take the loss like a man, and every time I face defeat, I come back.
That's right, and same here. Even though it was a winning night, still, that last, the main event does leave a bit of a sour taste in your mouth. But at the same time, I am super happy for Weidman. Because, look, man, he went out there. I like it when people have their backs up against the wall and they go out there and get a win. It's a feel-good story, and he needed that win so badly, and he went out there and did it. Look, if Zaleski and fucking Jimmy and Burgos didn't win, maybe I'd be singing a different tune. Maybe I'd be really pissed off right now, but I'm happy for Weidman. And speaking of counting dudes out that are on 3-fight losing streaks, we forgot to talk about this. We got Josh Burkman. He's plus 300, and Drew Dober is minus 360. Now, Shaq, when this fight was first announced, I was thinking it was going to be a dead pick'em because, I mean, look, Drew Dober, this is a guy that got finished by Efrain Escudero in under a minute. One doesn't simply get finished by Efrain Escudero in under 1 minute, and he's a minus 360 favorite.
Well, when the fight got announced, I was expecting Dober to be a favorite, and before I watched the tape, I was thinking of Dober as an easy parlay leg because it was Burkman. Burkman retired his last fight, and we know Josh Burkman doesn't win fights in the UFC. But then I watched the tape, man, and like you said, Dober goes out there against Efrain, which was supposed to be an easy win for him, and he goes out there and gets choked out.
Under a minute, and
then when he's fighting guys like Scott Holtzman, he's in these tough wars with him. He's 1-1 going into the third round, and he's getting touched up on the feet, and he's supposed to be a national Muay Thai champion, and the guy's stuck in the mud. He has no head movement. His takedown defense isn't very good. I mean, he's gotten better over the years, but he's not on par with not even some of the mid-tier lightweights. So I think this guy's barely holding on to a spot in the company. I think he will stay in the company, but he'll always be hanging on by a thread. And, Burkman, he doesn't win fights in the UFC, but this is, like I said, that typical spot where everyone is underestimating the underdog because, he's old, he's on his way out. But when you really look at the favorite here, I mean, what's he done? Jason Gonzalez, he pretty much... Jamie Varner. I mean, he loses most of his fights in the UFC. There's no really clear advantages he has in this fight. I think Burkman's faster, more powerful, and Burkman has the more experience. I know Burkman, he quits a lot, you know what I'm saying? So, but plus 300, man, I'm gonna go with Burkman here. I think it's that typical spot where these old vets that are done, quotation marks, come back and get a win here. This reminds me of that KJ Noons fight. I bet on KJ Noons thinking Burkman was done, and, I lost. So
I got to give Dober a lot of respect, though, because he did one thing. There's one thing he accomplished where I'm like, this dude's a serious badass. He goes out there against Nick Hine. He loses a unanimous decision, and then he marries Nick Hine's sister. I'm like, yep, Dober's a badass. But as far as this matchup, man, I mean, it should be a dead pick'em. So when you see plus 300 on Burkman, I mean, in normal situations, I'd play it, but since it is Burkman, it'll just be, a tout master pick. But look, man, Burkman should not be plus 300 here. It should be close to a pick'em with a slight lean on Dober, but minus 360 plus 300, it's dog or pass at this point. So I'm passing, but my tout master pick, and I am top 5 in the world in tout master, is Josh Burkman. We'll see what happens with that because, one doesn't simply pick Josh Burkman. Now, next up, this is going to be good, man. We got an intriguing flyweight matchup between Jared Brooks. He's minus 150. The comeback on Eric, is it Showtime? Eric Shelton is plus 130. What are you thinking, man?
Jared Brooks is a very high-level wrestler. I think he's like a world champion, world championship level type of wrestler. And, I haven't really seen too much tape on him. There's not too many fights on YouTube. He had a good fight with CJ Hamilton years back where he just completely straight up grinded him. Their wrestling was serious. But, I think this could be a factor of that UFC experience. Shelton, he went in there against Pantoja. I thought he lost 30-27, but he showed me some good things. Showed me some good things in that fight. He landed some uppercuts, but, Pantoja likes to get hit a lot. But I think he's very athletic, and I think he could actually stuff these takedowns. He's actually got very good wrestling as well. And, it's that UFC experience. And I'm going to say he squeaks out a 29-28 decision. I think Brooks, spends too much energy trying to go for big slams, taking him down. And Shelton takes the last 2 rounds just by landing the more effective shots. And Jared Brooks gets that first UFC L.
I agree with you that it's going to be a 29-28, but I actually think Brooks is going to win the 29-28. Look, Eric Shelton's got a lot of hype. He's super athletic, and for a long time people were saying, this could be the guy in the flyweight division. It hasn't exactly materialized, but I do see glimpses here and there, of the potential this kid brings to the table. But his biggest issue is his takedown defense. We're dealing with a stud wrestler here in Jared Brooks, so what I'm thinking is first 2 rounds, Jared Brooks is going to get those takedowns, but then that 3rd round, it is that UFC debut. I think he's going to gas out a little bit, and that's when Eric Shelton's finally going to wake up, and everyone that's betting on Shelton is going to be like, oh, come on, Shelton, finish him. Come on, man. And then you're going to pray that, you won either the 1st or 2nd round because you're going to win the 3rd round. But I do think it's going to be a 29-28 split decision for Jared Brooks. The takedowns will be the difference. Now, this is the last one, man. You ready? We got Alexandra Albu. She's minus 165. The comeback on Kaylin Curran is plus 145. Now, allegedly, Alexandra Albu is 2-0. Allegedly. We both know she's not really 2-0.
Yeah, she's really 6-0. And, like I said earlier, this could also be a trap fight where Kaylin Curran is done. She doesn't win fights in the UFC, but Albu's coming off a 2-year layoff. And, in her fight against that Polish chick, she had some good takedown defense. Very good in the clinch, and that guillotine choke was disgusting. It was razor tight, and we know it does not take much to break Kaylin Curran. But in Curran's last fight, she lost to Jamie Moyle, who was supposed to be an easy fight for her. They were trying to get her back on track, and she goes in there and gets taken down and loses all 3 rounds, which is just proving that this chick was never good to begin with. But I don't think she quit in that fight. I think she just lost. I don't think she quit. I think she fought tough all 3 rounds. She's just not that good. Her takedown defense isn't good. She likes to strike with her eyes closed at times, so that shows me where her heart and head's at. And I just think, man, it's a case where she's just happy to be there, man. I think she's just a nice girl. And do I think she has it in her? I don't. But I wouldn't be shocked if she pulled this off just because Albu's coming off the layoff. And we really don't know too much about her, so I don't recommend betting on either side. If you want to play that fight starts around 3, I think it was like -1 something. If anything, I still wouldn't even play that, but I know some of you people like to bet things like that. So, if anything, I think it was really low. So, but my pick is going to be Albu just because I'll never pick Curran in a fight just because I question her heart, I question her toughness, and I question her skills. So I'm going to go with Albu.
I got Albu as well, and the layoff doesn't really concern me because it wasn't, a layoff because of the new drug testing, you know, this or that. It's because, you know, she's a smart chick. She went to school. I forget if she went, you know, to become a lawyer or a doctor, but bottom line, like, you know how, like, Klitschko has a fucking PhD and shit, you know what I'm saying? Like, she's one of those chicks. Not saying that she's going to reach that level. All I am saying is that world championship karate fighter. I'm pretty damn sure she's got a Sambo background, too, that we don't know about. Because, I mean, when I saw her UFC debut...
She's a master of sport.
Master of sport. You know, it's funny because I saw her that UFC debut, and, you know, it says 2-0. I'm like, oh, she's 2-0. Shit, she's not experienced. Then she gets pushed up against the fence. You see that wide base. You see her swim for those underhooks. I'm like, yeah, this chick ain't 2-0. You know what I'm saying? She's got a lot of experience, and she's very composed in there. She's technical. I mean, the jab is on point. The kicks are on point. The takedown defense is good. And more importantly, she wants it. She's not going to quit. You know, if she gets taken down, you know, you see that look in Kaylin Curran's eyes. You know, she makes that facial expression when she gets taken down. And, you know she lost the fight right then and there. With Albu, the fight ain't over till it's over. I got to pick the fighter with more heart and more skill and more will. And that is Alexandra Albu. So even though Kaylin Curran is quote-unquote due for a win, there's no such thing as being due for a win in this game, and I got Alexandra Albu. Well, man, now we officially did it. Now we covered the whole card. It's going down this Saturday, pay-per-view. Everybody support the sport and buy it. And Shaq, let them know where to follow you. I see you've been consistent with the writing, and what's going on, bro?
Yeah, man, just follow me, MMA Genius 05. Follow the Sport MMA Matrix, TSM_MMA. And I even made an Instagram account, TSM_bet. So big things coming. We're going to keep cashing, and we're going to keep winning.
Oh, so I heard your third-party track now.
Oh, yeah. My bets are on Kattar as well, so you can go on there and check them as well.
Yes, sir. For me, you already know, third-party track, baby, bestfightpicks.com/record. It's got the links to the Bet MMA and the Kattar records. Killing it this year. About 40 units up, 21% ROI. Looking to take things to the next level. If you think I'm satisfied with those numbers, you're very wrong. Even though they're better than anyone else's numbers, I still want them to be even better. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at BestFightPicks. Go to bestfightpicks.com for the play. Subscribe to Half the Battle on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Stitcher. And, man, all I got to say is that we got a new setup here in the studio, and we're going to be producing a lot more content, a lot cooler shit, better production, better everything. So until the next time, let's cash these bets.